When this woman told her husband about a secret box she had kept concealed for 25 years, she was near death from cancer. Her husband sobbed uncontrollably as he opened the box and saw what was inside. Cynthia was lying in her hospital bed, breathing shallowly and with sleepy eyes. Her husband, Anthony, sat beside her and held her trembling hand. They had an unseen tie that kept them together no matter what, and their love was unshakable. Now, however, their relationship was put to the ultimate test. Even though Cynthia had cancer and was dying, she had something to say to Anthony before she died. He was unaware of the existence of a concealed box. The answers to all of Anthony's recent queries were in the hidden box. As an engineer, Anthony was always experimenting with devices and machinery. For as long as Cynthia could recall, he had been developing a unique engine. It was his fantasy, one he had clung to since their first encounter. The construction of Anthony's unique engine was not progressing as planned. He put his heart and energy into the project, working on it year after year. But he kept failing at it, no matter how hard he tried. Cynthia, on the other hand, maintained their modest urban house. She prepared their meals, took care of her garden, and created a cozy and welcoming atmosphere in their home. With each member contributing in their own unique way, they made the ideal team. They remained together in love and happiness for 25 years. However, even the strongest ties are put to the test in life. They were celebrating Cynthia's 48th birthday one day when a tragic event occurred. Cynthia began coughing throughout supper. What started off as a mild cough quickly escalated into severe episodes that left her struggling to breathe. She blacked out before Anthony realized it, and it was terrible. Anthony took her to the hospital in a panic, waiting outside for the doctor's report as his heart thumped in his chest. All kinds of thoughts were coming to him. All he could do was hope for the best. However, the doctor's news to him was heartbreaking. For more than a year, Cynthia's lung cancer had been subtly growing inside of her. However, it was not all. The most startling aspect was that Cynthia had concealed it from him despite knowing about it for months. Anthony was overcome with hurt and rage. How was Cynthia able to hide something so significant from him? Why would she do this to him when he was certain she had no secrets? But Cynthia had painful and unselfish motives. She didn't want to bother Anthony with her sickness because she knew she only had a few months to live. She couldn't stand to see him spend all they had on a disease that would still kill her, especially since they were already having financial difficulties. She only wanted to be with him in the tranquility of her final days. "I apologize so much, Tony. Simply put, I didn't want to disturb you. In addition, I felt afraid, fearful. I felt like my spirit was being plagued by the idea of leaving you behind." Cynthia said, "I know I should have told you, I just couldn't bring myself to," while she fixed Anthony's gaze with her own. She could see how deeply the news affected him as she continued to look. Although she could see the wide smile that was playing on his lips, she knew that he was dying within and wondering how he would manage without her. She knew that as soon as they said their final goodbyes, Tony's life would become dreary. But Anthony had already decided what to do. His wife was receiving the care she required. Life without her was unthinkable for him. The idea was actually like living in a nightmare. Anthony took Cynthia's hands and sat next to her bed. He assured her that he would stop at nothing to fight this war with her. Cynthia decided to start the therapy since she realized there was nothing she could do to change her husband's mind. Cynthia's condition progressively deteriorated due to the unrelenting disease. Her body suffered greatly as a result of the harsh chemotherapy and radiation treatments. Her appetite disappeared, discomfort became her daily companion, her hair thinning and falling out, and she spent more and more time in the hospital. Anthony was prepared to go to any lengths to save his wife. To pay for her care, he depleted his resources and liquidated belongings. However, her condition deteriorated in spite of his best efforts. He persisted in his optimism, even going so far as to sell his incomplete engine for components in order to generate further funds. At last, Cynthia's health began to improve, and Anthony's heart began to fill with optimism. However, their troubles were only beginning. Victoria, Cynthia's sister, came to visit because Victoria believed Anthony had forced Cynthia into a financially precarious marriage. She had never liked him. She first gave the impression that she was worried for her sister's well-being, but her true nature quickly became apparent. She started questioning Cynthia's treatment and repeatedly interrupted their time together. However, Anthony disregarded her and concentrated only on Cynthia's requirements. Even though Cynthia's health was deteriorating, her hospital stay included some very memorable experiences. Cynthia started experiencing hair loss a week after starting chemotherapy. Tears filled her eyes as she gazed at herself in the mirror. Her previously gorgeous hair was now strewn all over the floor. She didn't recognize herself. Anthony's heart wrenched as he saw her in the doorway. Even though he was aware of her affection for her hair, he knew what he had to do. He brought clippers to his wife and grinned pitifully. He took her hand and began cutting the remainder of her hair without a word. Although Anthony trimmed Cynthia's hair while she sobbed, his kind touch was comforting. He put a soothing touch on her shoulder to let her know that they were fighting this battle together. Cynthia clung to his hand, comforted by the man who had supported her through thick and thin. Cynthia was still crying as Anthony finished cutting her hair. Setting down the clippers, he gave her a firm embrace. As she sobbed on his shoulder, he comforted her and reassured her that he would be there for her at every turn. Cynthia was taken aback by Anthony's new appearance the following day. Like her, he had shaved his head. He took this action to express his love and closeness to her. Cynthia broke down in tears upon seeing him, moved by his show of support. Their hospital room was converted into a small haven of love on Valentine's Day. Anthony had prepared all of Cynthia's favorite dishes, and the scent of the delectable food filled the air, making Cynthia smile. The collection of old photos he brought, however, which included images of them when they were young and in love, was the greatest part. A reminder that their love remained strong throughout this trying period was provided by their laughter and memories of their happy days together. The difficulties they faced continued even after Cynthia was well enough to return home. Anthony remained her caretaker, providing her with steadfast dedication in the areas of food, washing, and comfort. He helped cut her hair when it came back and made sure she ate healthily even when she wasn't hungry. Once an ordinary house, theirs was transformed into a loving haven. Their love only deepened despite all the hardships. When Cynthia gazed at Anthony, her eyes would light up, serving as a lovely reminder that love is stronger than any obstacle. The foundation of their journey was Anthony's unfailing care and Cynthia's everlasting love. However, Cynthia had a secret that would alter everything. She had kept it a secret for 25 years, waiting for Anthony to ask her about it. She realized it was time to notify him as her condition deteriorated. Anthony's focus, however, turned to Victoria, Cynthia's sister, and her peculiar actions. Her recent behavior seemed strange. She spent more time in their house and persisted in questioning Cynthia about certain assets. Anthony saw that his sister-in-law was sticking her nose in inappropriate places. Cynthia had to return to the hospital, this time permanently, as her health took yet another turn for the worse. Anthony came home that night to get some of his wife's essentials. But it was unsettling who he met there. Victoria was exploring their home, looking in nooks and crannies and pulling drawers. Anthony was suspicious right away. He went up to Victoria and demanded an explanation for her unauthorized presence in their home. Taken by surprise, Victoria offered a weak justification. She stated that she wanted to immediately get her watch because she had left it behind on her previous visit. However, Anthony was not a fool. He was aware that something was wrong. Concerned by Victoria's peculiar actions, Anthony went back to the hospital. He then questioned Cynthia about her sister's true situation. His wife inhaled deeply before disclosing a startling truth that she had long kept to herself. Cynthia said that she had made investments in equities that didn't seem to be worth much before they were married. However, fate had changed course. Those stocks were worth a fortune a year earlier when their value had soared. Anthony was terribly hurt by the reason she had kept this a secret from him. She thought it would be pointless to use the money to pursue treatment after learning she had cancer. She preferred that Anthony utilize the funds to fulfill his lifetime ambition of finishing his unique engine.
Even after her death,
she wanted him to be happy.
Only Victoria, her sister, was aware of the stocks, and she was motivated by self-interest to take them for herself. Anthony felt a range of feelings. He was offended that his wife had been hoarding so much money that would have allowed her to receive better care.
He did, however, understand her choice. Cynthia was aware that she would still die regardless of the care she got. Thus, she decided to put his goals ahead of her own health. Her gesture of selflessness left him in awe of her love and in anguish. Holding Cynthia's hand, Anthony expressed his desire for them to stop sharing secrets. She agreed in a weak voice, "No more secrets." The last item she had withheld from him was then revealed to him. There was a tiny wooden box hidden on the top shelf of their bedroom closet. He would discover her final secret inside. Anthony ran home to get the enigmatic box, curious and bewildered. However, he found himself in the middle of a chaotic situation. Their once comfortable home has been looted. Someone had been looking for something badly, as seen by the empty drawers and scattered possessions. Anthony recognized Victoria. She had no concern for her sister's well-being. She only desired the stocks. She used Anthony's absence in the hospital to look for them because she knew Cynthia had concealed them somewhere in the house. Anthony discovered the hidden box his wife had mentioned when he went inside the closet. He opened it cautiously, curious to see what was within. He initially just saw the stock certificates, but something strange appeared behind them. Two exquisitely made dolls with a dejected expression. Anthony rushed back to the hospital to ask Cynthia to explain the dolls, since he couldn't grasp what they were. Cynthia described what the dolls were in a soft voice. Her mother had instructed her to knit a doll instead of arguing or nagging when a spouse made her unhappy. Her mother used this straightforward gesture to vent her frustration without starting a fight. As Anthony stretched out and touched one of the dolls, his heart wrenched. Its delicate white yarn served as tangible proof of the times during their marriage when he had brought his cherished wife grief. Their ideal relationship was shattered by the idea that she had made these dolls when she was unhappy. He was somewhat relieved, though, despite the misery. Only 2 dolls were there, indicating that in his 25 years of marriage, he had unintentionally made his wife unhappy just twice. This gave him some comfort. Their relationship had been closer than he could have ever dreamed, and his love had been sincere. But there was still more to discover. Anthony had discovered an envelope with a pile of cash inside the box. He was puzzled by the sight. Since none of the stocks had been sold by his wife, where had this substantial cash come from? Cynthia responded to this query with a kind grin. She had earned the money by selling the dolls she had crocheted over the years. A wave of emotion swept over Anthony. Throughout their marriage, his wife had crocheted many dolls, each of which was a quiet representation of her discontent. Anthony came to the realization that he had occasionally failed to recognize his wife's emotional needs. He had been so preoccupied with his own joys and interests that he had failed to notice the slightest indications of her discontent, such as her unwillingness to talk about her day or her silent sighs when he got home from work. Nevertheless, Cynthia had decided to put up with her dissatisfaction in spite of her secret efforts, because she felt it was worth the price to keep their peace. Her affection humbled Anthony, and he felt a great deal of shame for not being more sensitive to her emotions. Anthony came to the realization that he had misinterpreted their connection after learning the truth about their marriage. It wasn't flawless, but it was genuine, deeply human, and delightfully imperfect. Anthony's affection for Cynthia only deepened in light of this new knowledge. To make up for the times he had been unaware of her suffering, he promised to appreciate her even more. Knowing that their love had survived the storm of secrets and come out stronger than before, Cynthia, in turn, pulled him close. Anthony wept as he expressed his regret for whatever hurt he may have unintentionally given her over the years. He described times he wished he had managed differently, his voice shaking. Cynthia paid attention. She then gave him a gentle pat on the cheek and assured him that he had nothing to regret. Despite their flaws, their love had always been stronger. Anthony leaned down and gave his wife a forehead kiss, overcome with thankfulness for her ability to love and forgive. He declared to her that he loved her unconditionally. Cynthia grinned softly. She was certain that Anthony had finally realized how deeply she felt for him at this very moment. Tears of relief and happiness streamed down the couple's cheeks as they embraced one another close. The sense of tranquility that had evaded them up until this point had now been found. Despite being tried and bruised, their love had come out stronger than ever.
However, Anthony also had a secret. A few days later, Anthony gave Cynthia a small, tastefully wrapped box as a surprise present. He smiled warmly as he gave it to her. Curiosity sparked. Cynthia eagerly opened the package. She discovered a number of documents with the straightforward yet deep words, "I love you," written on them. Cynthia's eyes were filled with a mixture of astonishment and awe as she gazed up at Anthony. "What does it mean?" she questioned him. Anthony explained why he had scrawled the words, "I love you," on so many pieces of paper in a kind manner. He continued by disclosing a secret he had kept to himself during their marriage. Every time he was offended or wounded by something his wife did, even if it was inadvertent, he scribbled these remarks. He decided to concentrate on the fact that he was incredibly in love with her, rather than holding on to his anger or contempt. Cynthia was very moved by this discovery. Although she believed she had never really upset her husband, she now understood that she had unwittingly and unknowingly injured him as well. She understood that each time, Anthony had made the decision to pardon her. She gave him a strong hug as tears filled her eyes. Her voice was full of love and appreciation as she murmured, "Thank you," into his ears. With equal vigor, Anthony reassured her that she had nothing to be grateful for. Once emblems of sacrifice and covert sorrow, the dolls and the hidden box now stood for something deeper, their unwavering devotion. They clung to these lessons of understanding, forgiveness, and sacrifice because they knew their marriage had not been flawless, and they knew they were the cornerstone of their long love story. If it was possible, their love increased even more at that precious moment of reunion. Despite secrets, suffering, and miscommunications, their relationship had stayed unbroken. Cynthia died quietly in Anthony's arms that evening. Until her final breath, he had remained at her side, holding her hand and reassuring her with whispers of love. He felt thankful for all the years they had spent together as she exhaled her final breath. Anthony opened the mystery box again when he got home. Memories of their adventure together were revealed by his shaking hands. His face was filled with tears of appreciation, grief, and love. Knowing that he would always remember Cynthia, he closed the box. His heart would always be marked by her forgiveness, sacrifice, and love. He put the box, a treasured memento of a love that had triumphed over life's hardships, in a secure location. Regarding Victoria, Anthony made it plain that she would never again enter their house, not even to attend the burial. What a lovely tale. Do you believe that hiding secrets from a loved one is acceptable? Post your opinions in the space provided for comments. I appreciate you watching.